The desert was endless, a sea of dust and broken stone. The man walked with his head low, his scarf pressed tight against his face. The storm had started hours ago, and it showed no sign of stopping. The wind howled like a living thing, screaming across the wasteland and cutting his skin with sharp grains of sand. Every step felt heavier, as if the desert itself wanted him buried. He knew he needed shelter or he would not survive the night. The sky above was no longer a sky, just a red haze of storm clouds swirling like a boiling sea. The man's boots sank deep into the soft earth, and his hands shook as he carried the small digging tool strapped to his back. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. If he could find a wall of stone or a pocket of ground soft enough to dig, he could make a hole, a cave, anything to protect himself from the storm. The desert was not kind to men who traveled alone. He had heard stories of travelers disappearing, swallowed by storms like this, their bones buried forever beneath the shifting sands. But he refused to be one of them. At last he found a small rise of ground where the sand had piled strangely. It was harder than the rest, almost solid beneath the surface. He dropped to his knees, pulled the digging tool free, and began to work. The sand was heavy with moisture, colder than it should have been. Every strike of the blade made a dull sound instead of a hollow one. He frowned but kept digging. Minutes passed, then hours. The hole grew deeper, wide enough for him to crawl inside. His arms burned, his chest heaved, but he did not stop. The storm was only getting worse, the air turning black with dust. If he did not finish soon, the desert would finish him. Then his tool struck something different. Not sand, not rock, but something smooth and hard. He froze, his breath caught in his chest. The sound had not been natural. It was a sharp metallic echo. He scraped away more sand and ice, his hands raw and bleeding now. A shape began to reveal itself beneath the earth. At first he thought it was metal, a piece of some ancient machine. But as the ice broke away, he saw pale skin beneath it. His heart pounded in his ears. A face was there, delicate but strange, too sharp and perfect to belong to a human. Her lips were blue from the frost, her hair like silver threads frozen in place. Her body was locked inside a crystal of ice, as if the desert had been keeping her prisoner for centuries. The man stumbled back in shock, his eyes wide. He whispered to himself, his voice trembling. This is not real. But it was real, she was real. The storm roared above, louder now, almost as if it knew what he had uncovered. He should have turned away, should have buried the hole and run. But something inside him refused to leave her there. She looked fragile, helpless, like a sleeping statue. And yet, there was a power about her, a weight that pressed against his chest. His hands moved without thought, scraping at the ice, striking it again and again. Cracks spread like lightning across the frozen shell. He dug faster, harder, as if saving her was the only thing that mattered. The storm outside screamed, and the earth trembled faintly beneath his knees. Finally, a piece of the ice shattered, falling away from her face. Her lips parted, a faint gasp of air escaping as if she had been holding her breath for centuries. Her eyes opened, glowing faintly blue in the darkness. The man froze, every muscle in his body stiff. The world went silent for a heartbeat. Then she spoke, her voice soft but heavy, like the echo of thunder. You've doomed us both. The storm howled louder, shaking the ground. The man's blood turned to ice as the meaning of her words sank into him. He had not just found shelter. He had opened a prison. The man's breath came in short, sharp bursts, his body frozen in disbelief. The woman's eyes glowed with a pale, unnatural light, piercing through the storm's darkness like two shards of ice. For a long moment, neither of them moved, the desert around them raging with furious winds. Her lips trembled, the frost still clinging to her skin, and then she repeated the words, slower this time. You've doomed us both. The man shook his head, unable to process her voice. He had expected silence, a corpse, or maybe nothing at all. Instead, she spoke in perfect words he could understand. her voice carrying a weight of sorrow and warning. He whispered back, his voice dry from dust. Who are you?" The woman's gaze moved past him, scanning the storm above as though searching for something unseen. Her eyes flickered with fear, a fear so sharp it seemed unnatural for someone who had been locked in ice for centuries. "They will come," she said, her voice no louder than the storm's whisper. "They always come when the seal is broken." The man frowned, wiping sweat and sand from his face. "Seal? What seal? I was only digging for shelter. I wasn't trying to." He stopped, realizing how useless his excuses sounded. Whatever she was, whatever prison had held her here, he had already broken it. The woman stirred, her limbs slow and stiff as if awakening from a 1,000-year sleep. Her silver hair tumbled free, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her skin, pale and smooth, shimmered with a strange energy. The man instinctively stepped back, afraid yet drawn to her at the same time. "You should have left me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I was hidden for a reason." Her words carried more than warning. They carried grief, as if she herself had begged the desert to bury her forever. The man tightened his grip on the digging tool, not as a weapon, but as the only thing grounding him to reality. "What happens now?" he asked. Her eyes turned to his, and for a moment he saw something there, not just alien power, but exhaustion, a terrible loneliness. "They will hunt us," she said, "and they will not stop until one of us is dead." The ground trembled beneath them, a faint rumble like thunder echoing through the sand. The man stumbled, looking around. Is that them?" The woman's face hardened. "It is the beginning." She pushed herself up, her body weak but filled with an ancient strength. Her movements were graceful but unsteady, like a warrior remembering how to stand after centuries of chains. The storm outside seemed to bend around her presence, as if the desert itself recognized her return. The man stepped closer despite his fear. "Listen, I don't know who you are or what you've done, but I can't leave you here. You'll die in this storm." She tilted her head, studying him, her glowing eyes narrowing. "You fear me," she said softly, "yet you would still save me." He swallowed hard, unsure how to answer. Another rumble shook the ground, stronger this time, the sand shifting like waves on a restless ocean. The woman's expression darkened, her voice colder. "They are waking." "Oh," the man demanded, frustration rising in his chest. "Machines," she whispered, "hunters born of war." A sharp sound pierced the storm, a metallic cry that did not belong to nature. The man's blood ran cold as the desert wind carried the sound closer. Shapes moved in the distance, half hidden in the storm. Not animals, not men, but silhouettes of something far worse. The woman turned toward them, her eyes burning brighter. "I told you," she said, her voice steady now. "You should not have freed me." The man clenched his fists, his survival instincts warring with the strange pull he felt toward her. He had been looking for shelter, but now he found himself standing on the edge of something far greater. Something that could destroy him, or maybe, just maybe, change everything. The storm shrieked above them, the first of the hunters breaking through the wall of sand, glowing red eyes piercing the night. The woman stepped forward, still weak but unafraid, her voice steady. "Stay close, human," she said, "for if they find you alone, you will not even have time to scream." The man swallowed hard, his heart pounding like a war drum. He had dug for shelter, but instead, he had uncovered a nightmare. And now, whether he wanted it or not, his fate was tied to hers. The desert storm screamed above, but the sound of the hunters cut through it like knives. Metal feet hammered against the sand, their red eyes glowing through the swirling haze. The man gripped his digging tool tightly, his breath shallow, his chest aching from fear. Beside him, the alien woman stood tall, her glowing blue eyes locked on the advancing shadows. Even weak from her frozen prison, there was a power in her stance that made the man believe she had seen such monsters before. "They are close," she said, her voice steady but grim. You must understand, they are not here for you, human. The man blinked, sweat stinging his eyes. Then who are they here for? Her gaze shifted to him slowly, heavy with meaning. For me. The words sank into his chest like stones. He looked again at the glowing red eyes cutting through the storm, growing larger, closer. You're telling me I dug you out, and now they're coming for us? For you? Her silver hair whipped in the storm winds, her expression hard. You should have left me buried, she whispered. I was locked away so the hunters would never wake. The man's heart thundered. Why? Who locked you away? What did you do? For the first time, her eyes softened, a flicker of pain crossing her face. It is not what I did, she said. It is what I refused to do. The storm howled louder, as if the world itself wanted to drown her words. The man leaned closer, desperate for answers. I don't understand. Talk to me. What do they want? Her hand trembled as she touched the cracked ice still clinging to her arm. They want silence, obedience, and control. They wanted me to bow, but I chose to fight. The hunters drew nearer, their outlines clearer now. Machines of bone and steel, their limbs jointed like insects, their heads glowing with symbols that shifted like fire. The man stumbled back, terror twisting his stomach. They're not human. They're not even alive. No, she said, her voice low. They are war-forged, and they do not stop. A harsh metallic cry cut through the storm, a signal. The hunters moved faster, spreading wide to surround them. The man's mind raced. We need to run. We can't fight them. The woman turned, her blue eyes locking onto his. Run, and they will track you to the ends of the earth, she said. Stay, and you may yet survive, if you listen. He swallowed, his throat dry. Then tell me what to do. Her expression was unreadable, equal parts sorrow and strength. First, you must accept this truth, she said, her voice sharp as a blade. By freeing me, you have tied your fate to mine. There is no going back. The hunters will see you as my ally now. To them, you are already guilty. The words hit him harder than the storm. Guilty? I don't even know you, he shouted. Her eyes flashed, her voice rising for the first time. And yet you freed me. Do you think they care about your excuses? No. Human, they see you and they see me. That is enough. The man's chest burned with fear and anger. This is insane. I just wanted shelter I didn't want. He stopped as another hunter broke through the sand, towering, its blade arms gleaming. The woman stepped in front of him, her presence commanding. You have much to learn, she said, but for now, you must trust me. Do not run. Do not fight blindly. Stay close to me, or you will not live to hear the rest. The man hesitated, his body shaking, but something in her voice anchored him. He nodded slowly. The hunters closed in, their eyes burning brighter, their metal bodies clicking and shifting like predators savoring the kill. The woman lifted her hand, frost still clinging to her skin, and whispered words in a language the man could not understand. The storm bent around her, the sand curling like it obeyed her command. The man stared in shock. What are you? He whispered. Her glowing eyes met his, and for the first time she answered. I was a general once, a protector of worlds, but to them, I am only a fugitive. Her voice broke, quiet but fierce. And now, so are you. The hunters roared, their blades raised, the storm collapsing into chaos around them. The man gripped his tool tighter, his heart pounding. He had dug for shelter, but now he was standing on the edge of a war he could not escape. The storm split open with a scream of metal. The hunters surged forward, their blade arms gleaming red under the lightning. The man stumbled back, the sand slipping under his boots. He had seen death before, but never like this, never so fast, never so certain. Beside him, the alien woman stood tall, her silver hair whipping in the storm, her eyes glowing like fire against the darkness. The first hunter lunged, its body snapping forward with insect speed. The man raised his tool, but she caught his wrist before he could move. No, she hissed. You are too slow. You will only die. Her other hand lifted, and frost exploded from her palm. The hunter froze mid-leap, its red eyes dimming as ice crawled across its body. With a sharp crack, the machine shattered into pieces, scattering across the sand. The man gasped, his chest heaving. You killed it." She shook her head, her eyes narrowing. "No, I delayed it. These things never die so easily." Even as she spoke, the fragments of the hunter twitched in the sand, pulling together with a horrible clicking sound. The man's stomach turned. "They can rebuild?" Her expression hardened. "Yes, that is why we run." Another roar cut through the storm, deeper this time. Shapes moved in the haze. More hunters, larger, faster, their glowing eyes burning like beacons of death. The woman grabbed his arm and pulled him, her strength shocking. "Move, human. If you want to live, you do not stop, no matter what you see." The desert floor shook under their feet as the hunters gave chase. The man's legs burned as he ran, his lungs filling with dust. The storm blinded him, but her glowing eyes were a guide, sharp and steady ahead of him. He followed her because he had no choice, because if he lost sight of her, he was dead. Behind them, the hunters screamed, mechanical cries that cut through the storm like horns of war. The sound was closer, always closer. The man risked a glance back and nearly fell. Dark shapes leapt through the sand, their blade arms slicing the storm apart as they closed the distance. "Faster!" she shouted, pulling him. His legs screamed in protest, but he forced them to move. The desert stretched endless before them, but she seemed to know where she was going. Her movements had purpose, not panic like she had been here before. The thought chilled him. Had she run this very path centuries ago, hunted by the same monsters? "Where are we going?" he shouted, his voice breaking. "There's a place," she answered, breathless but firm. "A ruin, buried deep. If we reach it, we may have a chance." The storm grew thicker, swallowing sound and light. The hunter's eyes glowed brighter in the haze, their shrieks growing louder. The man tripped, falling hard to the ground, the sand cutting his face. The woman spun back, her glowing eyes fierce. "Up! Do not stop!" He pushed himself up, but one hunter was already upon them. Its blade swept down, inches from his head. The woman slammed her palm into the sand, and ice erupted upward like a wall, blocking the strike. The blade cracked through it, but the moment was enough. She pulled him forward, running again. "You will not survive without me, human. Remember that." The man's chest burned, but he nodded. He hated the fear in his voice, hated the helplessness, but he had no choice. She was his only hope, and he was hers, whether either of them liked it or not. The desert ahead shifted, the storm pulling back just enough to reveal something massive. The edge of a black stone structure half buried in the sand. Broken pillars jutted from the earth like bones, their surfaces covered in strange symbols that glowed faintly blue. The woman's eyes flickered with recognition. "There," she whispered, "the ruin. Hurry!" The hunters shrieked behind them, closing in. The man's legs felt like fire, his throat raw, but the sight of the ruins filled him with a desperate hope. If they could make it inside, maybe, just maybe, they could survive the night. The ground shook again, harder now, as if the desert itself wanted to swallow them. The hunters broke through the storm in full, towering forms of steel and bone, their glowing eyes locked on the man and the alien woman. One raised its blade and screamed, a sound that rattled the very sky. The woman pulled him into the shadow of the ruins, her voice low and sharp. "They will not stop," she said, her eyes burning. "Not until one of us is dead." The man's heart thundered as the hunters closed in, their glowing eyes filling the storm. He had dug for shelter, but now he was running for his life into a place where only nightmares waited. The man stumbled into the ruins, his chest burning, lungs clawing for air. The storm outside raged like a living beast, but inside the ancient structure there was silence. The walls of black stone glowed faintly with blue markings, shifting like rivers of light. The man pressed his back against the cold surface, gasping, his eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. The alien woman moved with more certainty, her glowing eyes scanning the walls as if she had walked this place before. Her silver hair clung to her face, still damp from melted frost, but her presence was sharp and unyielding. She touched the glowing symbols, her hand trembling. "This place remembers," she whispered, almost to herself. The man pushed off the wall, his voice raw. "Tell me what's happening," he demanded. "I dug you out. I nearly died running through that storm. Those monsters are out there trying to kill us, and you keep speaking in riddles." His voice cracked, desperation bleeding into anger. "I deserve the truth." The woman turned slowly, her eyes colder than the stone. "The truth will not comfort you," she said softly. But she stepped closer, her glowing eyes fixed on his. "Still, you must hear it, because you are already part of it." The man swallowed hard, his fists tightening. "Then tell me." She breathed deeply, her shoulders heavy as if carrying centuries of weight. "I was not always a prisoner," she began, her voice low and steady. "I was a general, a protector of my people, a commander of armies that stretched across stars." Her words filled the air like fire. "But power breeds envy, and war never ends. My own kind turned against me." The man's eyes narrowed. "Why? What did you do?" Her lips pressed into a thin line, her expression torn between pride and grief. "I refused to kneel," she said. "They built the hunters to control us, machines that obeyed without question. I fought against them, against those who wanted every world enslaved to their will." Her hand moved across the glowing symbols, tracing their patterns. "For that rebellion, I was betrayed. Not killed, but frozen." Her eyes darkened, her voice trembling now. "They locked me in the ice and buried me in your desert, a warning to others, a forgotten ghost in a prison of frost." The man felt his skin crawl, his chest tightening. "And I set you free," he whispered. Her gaze snapped to him, piercing. "Yes," she said, "and in doing so, you broke the seal. The hunters woke because of you. They will never stop now." He staggered back, his stomach twisting. "So I doomed us both," he muttered, echoing her first words. Her eyes softened slightly. "No, they would have come eventually. But now you stand with me." The man laughed bitterly, though fear trembled in his voice. "I'm no soldier. I'm no general. I'm just a man trying to survive a storm." "You survived the storm," she said sharply, cutting through his doubt. "And that is more than most. You're not helpless. You are unbroken. That is why fate chose you to find me." The ruins trembled, dust falling from the ceiling as the hunters' cries echoed closer outside. The man looked toward the entrance, panic rising again. "They're coming." The woman's face hardened, her glowing eyes fierce. "Yes, they will always come." She stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. "Listen carefully, human. These ruins hold power. My prison was not only made of ice. It was part of something greater. Weapons, secrets, memories locked in stone." Her hand pressed against the glowing wall, and for a moment, the entire ruin pulsed with light. The man's heart skipped a beat. What did you just do?" "I awakened it," she said, her voice trembling with strength. "The prison that held me will now protect us, if I can still control it." Outside, the storm shrieked louder, the hunter's claws scraping against the stone. The man gripped his tool tightly, his body tense. "Protect us? How?" Her gaze locked on his, fierce and unyielding. "By making the ruins remember me." The blue markings across the walls flared brighter, spreading like veins of fire through the ancient stone. The man felt the air vibrate, the ground beneath them humming with power. The hunters shrieked again, pounding against the ruins, their red eyes glowing in the darkness beyond. The woman's voice rose, her words echoing through the chamber in a language he could not understand. The stone answered, the light pulsing in rhythm with her voice. The man stumbled back, his chest tight with awe and fear. "Who are you really?" he whispered. She turned to him, her glowing eyes blazing. I am the last defiance of my people, she said, her voice like thunder. And now, so are you. The hunters slammed against the ruins, the stones shaking, the storm screaming. The man's blood ran cold. He had wanted shelter, but instead he had unlocked a war older than his world itself. The ruins glowed with pulsing blue light, the ancient walls alive again after centuries of silence. The man shielded his eyes, the brightness searing against the darkness of the storm. The hunters outside shrieked in fury, slamming their blades against the stone, their red eyes burning through the gaps. But the walls held, humming with strange energy that pushed back the storm and the machines. The alien woman stood in the center of the chamber, her silver hair glowing with the same light as the ruins. Her hands were raised, her voice echoing in a language the man could not understand. The stones seemed to respond to her, every word sending ripples of power through the floor. The man stared in awe, but fear gnawed at him. He whispered under his breath, "Who is she really? Savior or executioner?" The woman lowered her hands slowly, the glow fading just enough for him to see her face. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned with fire. "The seal is broken," she said, her voice heavy. "The ruins will fight with us, but they will not last forever." The man tightened his grip on his tool, his knuckles white. "You keep saying us, but you don't understand. I don't even know if I can trust you." Her gaze snapped to him, sharp and piercing. "You cannot trust me," she said coldly. "Not yet. But you must decide whether to stand with me or die with them." Her words hit him like a hammer. He wanted to scream, to demand answers, to force her to explain everything. But the sound of the hunters outside shook the chamber, reminding him that time was running out. Still, his anger broke through his fear. "Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" he shouted. "You let me dig you out without warning me, without telling me what I was unleashing." His voice cracked with rage and exhaustion. "You've dragged me into a war I never asked for." The woman's face tightened, a flicker of guilt crossing her features. "I cannot speak until I woke," she said softly. "And when I woke, I was afraid you would leave me." The words silenced him, cutting through his anger like a blade. He stared at her, shocked. "Leave you? After everything?" Her eyes lowered, glowing faintly in the dim light. "You freed me, but freedom is a curse without an ally." I did not want to wake to silence again. The man's heart twisted, but he pushed the thought away. "Or maybe you just needed someone to hide behind," he said bitterly. Her eyes snapped up, cold fire burning in them now. "You think I need you to survive?" she hissed, stepping closer. "I commanded armies when your kind still burned fire for warmth. Do not mistake my weakness now for helplessness." The man's jaw tightened, his fear warring with defiance. "Then why not kill me? Why not leave me for the hunters? If I'm nothing to you, why drag me along?" Her face softened for just a moment, her voice lowering. "Because you are not nothing," she said. "You are a reminder that even in this broken galaxy, there are still those who act not from power, but from mercy." The silence between them was sharp. The man's chest heaved as he tried to process her words. She was dangerous, powerful, a being from another world with secrets buried deeper than these ruins. But she had chosen him, and that terrified him more than the hunters. A thunderous crash shook the walls, shards of stone raining from the ceiling. The hunters' blades pierced through cracks, their shrieks growing louder. The man flinched, gripping his tool tighter. "They're breaking through." The woman's eyes glowed brighter, her voice sharp. "Then trust me or die now. There's no third choice." The ruins pulsed again, the blue markings flaring like lightning. The woman raised her hand, frost spreading across the floor toward the cracks, sealing them in ice. The hunters roared in fury, pounding harder. The man's heart thundered, his doubt burning inside him like fire. He didn't know if she was savior or destroyer, ally or enemy. But in that moment, staring into her glowing eyes as the ruins shook around them, he realized one truth. He had no choice but to stand with her. The ruins shook like the heart of a dying world. The hunter's blades hammered against the stone, splitting walls and shaking dust from the ceiling. The blue markings across the chamber pulsed faster, brighter, as if straining to hold back the tide. The man pressed his back to the wall, gripping his tool like a weapon, though he knew it was useless against what waited outside. His chest heaved, his lungs burning, but he could not stop staring at the alien woman standing before the storm. Her silver hair flowed like firelight, her glowing eyes fixed on the cracks where the hunters clawed to enter. Every movement of hers carried both power and exhaustion. The ruins themselves seemed to bend to her will, but the man could see it was costing her strength. At last, she turned to him, her voice sharp and steady. "This is where we make our stand." The man's stomach twisted, his hands trembling. "You mean fight them? Look at me. I'm just a man with a shovel." Her gaze burned through him. "And yet you are still alive," she said. "Do not think so little of yourself. Your world has iron in its blood. You endure. That is your weapon." The ruins groaned as the hunters forced their way inside, their red eyes piercing the shadows. One machine shattered the ice barrier with a scream of metal, its bladed arms dripping frost. The man stumbled back, his heart racing. The woman raised her hand, a wall of frozen light erupting from the floor, slamming into the hunter and sending it crashing into the stone. But more followed, pouring through the breaches, red eyes glowing like a sea of fire. The chamber filled with their shrieks, their claws scraping against the glowing walls. The man swallowed his fear, forcing himself to step forward. "If this is the end," he muttered, "I'm not going down hiding in a corner." He swung his tool at the nearest hunter, the metal sparking uselessly against its armored hide. The machine roared and lashed back, its blade missing his chest by inches. The man fell, but scrambled up again, refusing to yield. The woman's eyes flickered as she watched him, a faint smile breaking her cold mask. "You see," she whispered, "even without power, you defy them." She lifted both hands, her voice rising in that ancient language. The ruins answered with a scream of light, beams of blue energy shooting from the walls, striking the hunters and shattering their bodies into shards. The chamber trembled as the power built, the markings burning like fire across the stone. The man shielded his eyes, shouting above the roar. "What are you doing?" Her voice thundered back. "Finishing what I began." The ruins flared brighter, but he saw her body weaken, her knees trembling, her breath sharp. The power was draining her life, burning through her strength like fire through paper. He rushed to her side, catching her before she fell. "You'll die," he shouted. Her glowing eyes met his, fierce and unbroken. "Better to die free than sleep forever in chains," she whispered. The hunters screamed as more light tore through them, their red eyes fading one by one. The chamber shook, stones splitting as the ruins poured their last strength into her. The man held her steady, his body trembling under the weight of the storm. "Stay with me," he begged. "Don't leave me now." Her lips curved in a faint, tired smile. "You freed me, human, and you fought beside me." Her voice was soft now, almost tender. "For that, I am no longer alone." The final blast erupted from the ruins, a wave of light that swallowed the chamber whole. The hunters shrieked one last time before shattering into dust, their red eyes extinguished. The storm outside screamed and then went silent. When the light faded, the ruins were cracked and broken, their glow gone. The man lay on the floor, coughing, his body aching but alive. He turned, his heart pounding. The woman lay beside him, her silver hair spread like a crown across the cold stone. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but still glowing faintly. "You live," she whispered, almost surprised. He nodded, tears burning in his eyes. "Because of you." She reached out, her trembling hand brushing his. "Then perhaps," she said softly, "we have both defied death tonight." The ruins fell silent, the storm outside broken. The hunters were gone, their threat ended, at least for now. The man stared at the alien woman beside him, his chest heavy with questions, with fear, and with something new he did not dare name. He had dug for shelter and uncovered a prison, a war, a secret buried in ice. And though the battle was over, he knew the war was not, because she was awake now, and nothing in his world would ever be the same.